Hello and welcome to the parent presentation for sophomore year for the class of 2023. Just to reintroduce ourselves, we have Mrs. Megan Brenner, who works with students' last names A through K, myself, Mrs. Chelsea Rose, students' last names L through Z, and Dr. Ashley Warren, our outstanding administrator who oversees our class. Let's talk through what you're going to see in our presentation. First and foremost, I'll be going through the graduation requirements, so any credits, testing requirements, and graduation seals. We're going to approach our planning for the future a little bit backwards. We're going to talk about what is our end goal as your students approach senior year. How do we get there? We'll look at some career exploration. So what are some online resources to help you work with your student on making a plan and tools that we'll be introducing to them throughout the year. We'll talk about the Great Oaks campuses and what opportunities exist there. We'll talk a little more in depth about Overgrad and the career and college tool that we offer to your students and you as parents. And then what's coming this year as far as programming that Mrs. Brenner and I will be doing with your students. First and foremost, graduation requirements. We like to showcase this little photo of the scene from our graduation if you have never been there. And hopefully by the time your students get there in May of 2023, we'll be celebrating just like you see in this photo, not worrying about social distancing or masks or anything to that degree, but we can have hopes and dreams because that's what we do here. First thing, credit requirements. For our graduation requirements, students need 21.5 credits. They need 4 credits of English. They will take 1 every year. They need 4 credits of math. 1 of those credits must be Algebra 2. Next is science. They need a physical, a life science, and 1 more elective credit. So physical sciences might include scientific investigations, chemistry, physics, and a life science would be biology. For social studies, your student needs 3 credits. So 1 credit of world history, 1 of American history, and 1 of U.S. government. Next, they need fine arts. So 1 credit that could be from any of our music programs, band, choir, orchestra, or our other music electives, including music technology or rock and roll music studies. An art credit through photography, ceramics, drawing and painting, graphic design, any of our outstanding art courses, or through our theater program, and that could include technical theater, the backstage stuff. For physical education or PE, we do require a half credit, but that is 2 courses because our PE courses only equal 1/4 credit, so 0.25. 1 of those classes must be Foundations of Fitness. Your student probably took that in 9th grade or over the summer, and 1 other elective credit. Next, our health credit is 1/2 credit, and that is only 1 class. So 10th grade is the first time that is available to your students. So they may have taken it over the summer, taking it here during the year, or plan to take it in the future, as long as it's completed by the end of senior year. So electives, anything else that I didn't talk about would fall under the elective category, or if you took more than the required classes in that subject area, it would default to elective credit. So 5.5 credits there. Next thing is testing. So you might hear about the state testing as EOC or end of course, or you might hear about it as AIR tests, and that is the American Institute of Research, which is the organization that actually writes and produces those tests. Currently required for graduation, students in the class of 2023 have to take 7 tests. So that is English 2, Algebra 1, Geometry, U.S. History, U.S. Government, and Biology. The testing requirement was waived for the 2019-20 school year when COVID hit. And so grades were used as the score equivalent. So if your student earned a C or higher, they did earn a passing score. Lastly, what the class of 2023 has to meet is the graduation seals. So each of these seals, as you see listed here, has a specific criteria that must be met to earn that seal. Down the presentation, you will hear how Mrs. Brenner and I are going to be communicating all of these components in the graduation requirements to your students and to you, so you can access them as you need. So you can see exactly which criteria students qualify for and which seals they are on track to meet. So our post-high school planning timeline. We are going to look a little bit at planning in reverse. Because when we think through the college and career process and where students need to be when they graduate, it might be easier to kind of plan in reverse. The same way where if you are trying to save for a incredible vacation, you need to know how much that vacation is going to cost and then when you want to take that, and then you work backwards as how much money I need to save each year to get to my goal. So same kind of thing we're going to look at in approaching our college and career planning process. So we'll look in reverse. So our end game, we're going to use the tool of August 1st of the senior year. So August 1st, 2022 is when we are going to have our students planning to prepare for. And why is this date important? That's because August 1st is when applications for colleges start to open and when students should really be finalizing what that plan is for when they graduate high school. So what would you need? So again, looking at that metaphor of planning for a vacation. So what are the things that you're going to need to be able to be successful on August 1st? So if you are planning to apply to any sort of educational program, be it college or career technical program, what have you, these are some things that you might need in your toolkit to be prepared for that day. So you'll need your high school transcript. You need a college admissions test of some sort, the score that you'll have to be ready. You may need an essay. You may need letters of recommendation or other recommendations if you're applying for a job of some sort. You also may need a resume in that list of activities and things that you have completed throughout your time during high school. So when are these things going to happen? When will we start building these tools so that we have them all prepared for that day? So in the junior year, you'll have kind of three big components of that. We'll have the state ACT test, and that will be either in February or March of the junior year. There will be essay prep that's taken place during their English courses in the 11th grade. And then also that PSAT and that 11th grade PSAT, although you may have students taking it this October, in the junior year is the only time that PSAT actually qualifies for national merit status. So that's why that PSAT in the junior year is worth noting. During the sophomore year, you're going to have a You Choose test day coming up in October. And so you've completed the survey and selected the test and activity that your student will be doing on that day in October coming up. So that will be another component kind of to that testing piece and gathering that data and information. We'll be working through resumes. There is a template and activity tracking that is available to students within Overgrad. So that is a place where they can start housing different activities that they've completed in the 9th grade and things they're planning to do in 10th grade. Going forward, they can track each year and just kind of a place that they can house all that information. So when they start to pull that resume together, and we will have templates available to students that they can start putting that resume all on one page and working through that. For the transcripts, this is something that obviously is just built as the years progress. So during the annual scheduling process with Mrs. Brenner and myself, we go through what credits they have, what things they need. They get a look at their transcript and kind of start to understand what that big picture as you're looking at a transcript of a child might look like. So you say you want more testing. Preparing for those college readiness exams is something that we work on each year. So last year, your student took the pre-ACT. That gives a predictive score of the ACT. Students may also take, coming up here in this You Choose Day here in October, your students may choose to take pre-ACT. They may take a practice ACT, which is an actual ACT test, and they can see how well they do on it at this point in time. They may take the PSAT. The PSAT is a College Board sponsored test that is only offered one test date per year in October. The only test that qualifies for national merit status, and that is, again, only during the 11th grade year. So taking the PSAT as a 10th grader will give you, again, that predictive score for the SAT, but it also will give you a good idea of where you stand at this point, and what skills you may need to work on if you want to hopefully achieve that national merit status in the 11th grade year. The ACT Work Keys test is a career-focused ACT-based test, and that test can also count toward the testing requirement for graduation. So if you're a student who may not be looking to go directly to college, that ACT Work Keys test can be a great checkpoint for you to see what career skills are strongest for you and start to give you some more guidance on planning for the future, and can be a great piece to your portfolio and resume as you're looking to apply to different career technical programs or employers. The ACT or SAT, those are the most commonly referred to National Standardized College Readiness Tests. So for each of these tests, there are about 7 to 8 dates per year. Right now, if you were to look at the ACT or SAT websites, you'll see lots and lots of different information. And lots of changes happening due to COVID and the requirements that must be met with distancing and different things going on with that. So they have adjusted their testing drastically to try and help support students through this. You have also probably heard a lot about colleges and their option to go test, or their choice to go test optional. We anticipate that there will, again, be very many changes as we kind of work through this new world that we're living in and trying to understand what pieces, but we do still believe that there will be a testing component potentially for the college admissions process. And so we'll continue to support and have those conversations as if we will go back to the 7 to 8 dates per year. So we will plan that will be the case when we enter the 11th grade year. So what's most important to consider if you're thinking about a testing plan for your student? To be prepared, again, we're talking about being prepared for that August 1st date in the senior year. So sharing an example. So student X takes Algebra 2 in the 10th grade. X chooses to take the PSAT in October of the 11th grade, and X takes the ACT for the state in February of 11th grade and receives an okay score for what they're planning to do. So maybe the college that they are thinking about applying to or really would like to attend, the score that they receive falls right in their average score or even on the higher side of their average score. And so they feel pretty confident with what they have. What should they do? For this student example that I've given, I think that student's right on track, and they may not need to take another test, another ACT test, if they don't feel like it, or they do not need to take the SAT test if they do not feel like it, if they feel confident with their score that they've received. However, two big components to know when you're thinking about a testing plan for your student is think about their math level. Many of the questions on the math sections of the ACT and SAT require math up through Algebra 2. Students who take the test without being completed with Algebra 2 score at least 5 points less in the math sections than those who've completed Algebra 2. So it's very, very helpful and saves you some money to think through where your student is in their math courses before signing up to take any of these tests. The high school does offer one ACT test in that 11th grade that is paid for by the state. Otherwise, to opt to take these tests, it is at cost to your family. The other component I would strongly encourage is to know your student. How much is too much testing? Where is your student's limit? What do they feel about the stress and anxiety that signing up for one of these tests brings onto them? So it's very important to have that conversation and to work together on what a specific testing plan for you to do with your student. I think that is a very critical piece. And at all points in time, if you have questions about your student's specific testing plan, because it does come down to the very specific student plan, Mrs. Brenner and I are happy to talk through that and see what suggestions we might have for you, and also just give you that extra boost of confidence that what you're doing is great for your student. Just a funny little additive. Found this on the internet, and I let my kids follow their dreams unless I already paid the registration fees from their last dream. Then they follow that dream for another 6 to 12 weeks. I think this is important to take into consideration, especially when thinking about that testing component, because these tests do start to cost money. And so think through each step that you're taking and what that might cost for your family, and kind of go from there. It might help guide your planning process.
I'm going to talk about career exploration. So one of the things we want to talk to sophomores about this year is really looking at different career options and career fields, and looking at their interests and their skills, their strengths. How might they best explore those skills and interests? What are some different career paths that they might be interested in pursuing? What are the educational opportunities that are out there for them? How do they explore those interests? So do they take classes? Do they join clubs, activities? And then how do they reassess? So there are a couple really great things that students can do. They can complete career interest surveys, which I'll share some resources a little later in this presentation. There are some great video resources out there where people are interviewed about their job and how they got to that career field, and simply exploring online. Again, we'll have some resources here in a couple slides where students can just explore different options and see what sounds interesting. We also suggest that students talk to their family, friends, neighbors, older siblings, friends, learn about the different careers that people that are connected to them are doing. What was their training? What was the education? What does a typical day look like? Do they have different recommendations? To explore and take advantage of the opportunities we have at Sycamore. So explore some of the different classes and electives we have. Perhaps consider a summer camp. Maybe volunteer in an area in which you're interested in, or job shadow. Anything that helps students to get a better sense of what's out there and if their area of interest really does fit them. These are some great online career resources. Overgrad we'll talk about a little bit more later, but we use that for a lot of different things at the high school. Ohio Means Jobs is Ohio's one-stop shop for career exploration, and it does have a built-in job search. Road Trip Nation is really neat. This is the program that interviews a bunch of different people in all kinds of different career fields and talking about their pathway to get to where they are now in their ideal field. Today's Military talks about the careers training offered for civilians and enlisted folks. And then Learn How to Become is a guided career interest and skill matching site. Also another really great resource. One of the other big things that comes out for sophomores is the Great Oaks. So talking about career exploration, students have the opportunity to take what is often called a super elective and take it in their junior and senior year through the Great Oaks career campuses. So the Great Oaks are career and technical education campuses that offer all kinds of different options. And it's a way for students to get a head start on their career or their college. Students can earn certificates and have the chance of beginning a career when they graduate. They also can take those certifications and potential other college credits that they earn through the Great Oaks and transition that to college credits. We will have more information in our counseling newsletters as time goes on, but in the Great Oaks, there are 4 campuses. Scarlet Oaks is the closest. That's right here in Sharonville. We have a good size group of students at Scarlet Oaks. Live Oaks is in Milford, Laurel Oaks is in Wilmington, and Diamond Oaks is on the west side of town in Harrison. So how our timeline works at the Great Oaks. So students, for the most part, those who were here in junior high went and did a very, very quick tour in 8th grade. Some students heard a little bit about Great Oaks last year in 9th grade. What we will do is in November, December, students will receive informational presentation. Usually this is done in English classes. Our plans for the year will definitely be altered because most things happen in person. That included last year a career fair and individual presentations with Great Oaks students. So this year it'll be a little different. It might be in video format, so it's virtual, but that will typically happen sometime in November. Also in November, applications open up. So students who are interested in attending Great Oaks for junior and senior year are encouraged to apply during the priority registration deadline or window, which begins November 19th. That's the first time students can apply. Applications, their priority deadline is in February, and so that's later here on this timeline. But as long as students are applying prior to February, everyone is getting that first look at the programs. Most of these programs do fill up. When this year started, the 2020-21 school year, none of the programs had any openings at any of the Great Oaks campuses. They were all completely full. And many of them, I would say at least half, fill up after that February 8th deadline. So November, we make sure students hear about the programs. They can apply as early as mid-November. In January, we usually take a field trip for students who want to see the campus. We go to Scarlet Oaks. They can visit 2 programs. It is currently scheduled for January 22nd, although this is a tentative date at this point, because they're not quite sure how that will work this year and if it will be possible. The folks at Scarlet Oaks really do want to get students in the building. They're just going to have to, they will let us know a little later on how that might work. They usually have an open house in the evenings. So this year, all the open houses for all 4 campuses will be on January 28th. Usually that time frame is between 5:30 and 7:30 or 5 and 7. In the past, that usually varies a little bit by campus. They're all on one evening. It's a great time for families and students to go talk to the instructors, see the campus. Unfortunately, with everything going on in COVID, these still are on the calendar. However, they are tentative. So they're debating on whether they can have multiple open house events so that they can bring people in on different days and it can be more spread out. So that we'll have more definitive information on that later. February 8th, that isn't changing. This still will be the priority deadline for applications. They still accept applications after this deadline. It just depends on what the space looks like. So some programs do fill up right away, and some are a little bit more open. And so a student can apply in June, and if there's space in the program, they can still be accepted. So typically in February and March of each school year, so of the 10th grade year, students are able to shadow for either a half or a full day at their campus of choice. Most of our students, as I mentioned earlier, do go to Scarlet Oaks because it is the closest and it's the largest of the campuses. But this year, we do have students at all 4 campuses. So more information about those dates will come later. In my meeting just last week with the career specialist at the Oaks, they do still anticipate this happening. They might offer more dates. Usually they offer 6 shadowing dates throughout February and March. We might have more of those simply to allow more students to do it over a greater period of time. So more information about this later, but this is typically the timeline of what happens with Great Oaks for students. So overgrad. What overgrad is and what it does. It offers a career interest survey. I'll show a screenshot of that in a minute. It's a great resource for career exploration. It does have our course planner on it. So it does have all of our classes and course descriptions in it. Many of the students have used this when they're looking at their classes for each school year. There is an interest in activity tracking. So students can actually build a resume right in Overgrad. They can also explore colleges. We will put everyone's transcript and graduation summary in the document library. That's what we're working on. Mrs. Rose and I are working on this week and next. They also have information about college admissions, the insights of how Sycamore students have applied and been accepted previously, test score prediction, and scholarship information. There is a college application checklist. It just isn't accessible for students until that senior year. So career interest inventory or career interest survey, many of the students have actually done this, but those who haven't yet, or new students potentially, when they go into their account, they click on My Future, and in the drop down, there's a career survey, and it simply gives instructions, and then they start the survey. Where we will have the graduation summary and the transcript. So if students go to their profile, on the drop-down menu, there will be a My Document section. And then they will be able to see both a graduation summary and a transcript. So they'll be able to see this. We will share the graduation summary with students in their Google accounts. But we also want to make sure it's accessible in Overgrad, so it's very easy to find. This will be a document that we go over with students annually as we're reviewing their classes, their credits, what's coming next, the classes they're taking next year. So signing into Overgrad, the next slide here will show, we'll have a link to the parent login. Parents sign up for an account, and then they connect themselves to their students. Students sign in straight with Google. So they click sign in with Google, and then as long as they're already logged in, they just connect to their Sycamore account and they are in. So parent account directions, we will link to this in on our website and in the email, but parents can click on the document and follow the instructions step by step. It's very easy to create a parent account and then simply link to your student. Okay, so let's wrap this up. So our plan for the year, we want to get every student their credit summary. We want to have that accessible in Overgrad and the other document section. That's going to be this month. And we were a little overzealous in our idea that we could do all of that in September. So we might still have a few students getting theirs shared at the very beginning of October. But hopefully we're going to get that done in the next week and a half. So in October, we have that test day coming up, the You Choose test day. New students, I believe, will be taking the practice ACT. Anyone who is a new student to the district this year. Students that were here last year had the ability to choose between the practice ACT, the PSAT, and the work keys. Unfortunately, we won't be able to administer the ASVAB, but that day will be in October. And then in November and December, that will be when we really are pushing out information about the Great Oaks. In January, hopefully we'll still have a field trip. And then we actually start scheduling for the 2021-2022 school year. You'll start hearing about it in January, and then we start meeting with all students in February and March. And then assuming we have end of course exams this year, last year, as you may remember, they were canceled due to the quarantine. If we do have them this year and they are currently scheduled and we're planning for them, they will be in April. So online resources, we try to make a lot of things accessible to families and students. So our website, we try to put everything that we share on our website. You'll see the site up there at sycamoreschools.org/SHS counseling. And we have different pages for different topics. And we have a page just for the 10th grade year. Overgrad, which was previously in this presentation, social media, we have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and we try to keep everything the same on all three sites. So you do not need to follow us on all of them. And then our newsletter is probably the next to the website, our most important item here. So the newsletter goes out every other week on a Monday, usually around mid-morning, and we send that to all students and all families. And any resources, sites, items that we get, whether it's career exploration, college, whatever that might be, we put in our newsletter so that everyone has access to that. And that is it. If you have any questions, we are going to be holding town hall events that will be virtual where Ashley Warren, Chelsea Rose, and myself, Megan Brenner, will be available to answer any general questions you might have, as I'm sure many families out there will have similar questions. If you have specific questions to your student, please don't hesitate to reach out to us individually, and we will help get you the answer that you need. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.